Shall we hear from you, Dr. Haripriya?
Sure. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Yeah, so my topic is on cataract surgery is all about volumes. So I think we again go back to the automobile example. Of course, we know that the BMW and Benz and the Audis do have much higher safety features. But what percentage of the number of cars which are sold belong to this category? So in 2019, of the 3 million cars sold, less than 1%, which is about 35,000 cars, belong to this category. So it is not something which everyone can afford. Moving on to cataract surgery. Again, for India, we did about 7.4 million cataract surgeries in the year 2019, about 75% of that volume last year due to COVID. As we know, most of these, I think more than 4 million procedures are done through the DBCS NPCB grant from the government aided CAM surgeries. So while we do have the option of premium surgery packages of over a lakh, we do know that femtosecond accounts for about less than 1% of our cataract surgeries today. So if you want more people in India to see, so we would have to think of high volume practice. Moving on to affordability. So the GDP in India, the per capita GDP in India is about $2,000, and in the UK it's about $40,000. So we cannot give the exact options which is available in the US and the UK to our patients. We have to give it for those who can afford it, but only having that option for all patients is not going to help solve the problem of blindness. So in spite of having a much higher GDP in the UK and the problem of blindness not being very high, this is a recent report which they have come up with. It's a 50-page detailed document which the UK has come about, where they're trying to plan to increase the number of cataract operations from 2015 to about 2035 by about 50%. And they want to see how can you make the procedures and the different practices more efficient, because they also realize it's not going to be easy to have a commensurate increase in the number of ophthalmologists or the different eye care personnel. And also in terms of the financials, just by increasing the cataract surgery list from 5 per surgeon to about 8 per surgeon, they show that the profit per case actually in fact doubles. So this actually volume does also make your practice more financially viable as well. Again, so the cataract surgical rate in India, so how are we doing here? In 1981, the CSR in India was about 700. So we have come a long way. I think India has been one of the global leaders in terms of improving the cataract surgical rate. It's about 6,000 in 2012, based on the census. We're much ahead of countries like China, which has a huge public health problem because of cataract blindness with a CSR of about 1,000. But are we doing enough? So India, with a population over 60 being about 9% in 2015, it's probably going to double to about 19% into the 2050. And in terms of numbers, that means almost triple the numbers. So we'd probably increase from 116 million in 2015 to about 330 million in 2050. So if we have more patients over the age of 60, this means having more incidence of cataract and other eye diseases, illness in the future. So are we ready and are we geared up for that? So considering both the affordability and this huge burden of blindness, I think the need of the hour is to have a large volume, high quality eye care setups. The goal here is to strengthen the eye care delivery system by a comprehensive, volume optimized, protocol based, standardized, safe, cost effective, sustainable, high quality and equitable model. So I think each of these phases are important. And this is where we'll be able to give our patients and be able to address the issue of cataract blindness in the country. And we also have the benefits of economics of scale by reducing the cost both to the patient and to the provider. Again, needless to say, if you want to do high volume, one has to have a quality assurance process in place. I think they both go together. It's impossible to do high volume with low quality and compromised care, because that will probably only bring in more problems for you. It's also important to standardize different tasks, including patient communication. So if it's performed at the right time and the correct manner every time, this will actually systematically minimize errors, reduce costs, and build both the patient confidence and patient satisfaction. So in terms of doing more volume, so we keep hearing that increasing surgical volume would increase your complication rates, make your outcomes worse. But actually the reverse is true. So this is published in ophthalmology last year from the National Swedish Registry, and in their series of surgeries which were done between 2007 and 2016. So when they began in 2007, when the surgeons did about 300 surgeries per surgeon, their complication rates were much higher. It was about 1.5%. And as the number of surgeries per surgeon increased over the next decade to about 450 surgeries per surgeon, the complication rates actually halved. So this actually is evident. So I think once one does do more volume, the complication rates do drop, because like I mentioned earlier, if you're going to do high volume surgery, you need to have be able to give consistent good quality outcomes. What about endophthalmitis? So this again is an interesting paper from Taiwan, which looks at 494 hospitals, and they looked at a series of about 1 lakh or more patients. And they reported that the patients who receive cataract surgery at low volume hospitals or by low volume surgeons have significantly higher risk of postoperative endophthalmitis than at high volume hospitals or high volume surgeons. Again, these are not reported by low volume hospitals or surgeons because it takes a much longer period to come across those number of patients who have postoperative endophthalmitis. We have seen the same within Aravind as well. In our recent publications, both in the series with 600,000 surgeries and the 2 million surgeries, where we try to compare the two groups with and without intracameral moxifloxacin, the postoperative endophthalmitis rate, once we had intracameral antibiotic, was about 2 per 10,000 surgeries, which is significantly lower than the American Academy of Ophthalmology's IRIS registry's post-op endophthalmitis rate of 0.04%, which is published again last year in ophthalmology. So your high volume also does give you various lessons which will help you take the right decisions and right direction, both for your own hospital and for other institutions to share as well. And by doing more surgeries, and if you're also going to have your combination of free and subsidized, this slide shows the income and expenditure graph over the last 4 decades at Aravind. And you can both do good and do well. So though only 53% of our patients are paying patients, we find that this model could be both financially sustainable and you could have a self-sustaining model in place. So to sum up, a niche practice, the motivation to either have a niche practice or a large volume practice would be based on the individual ophthalmologist. If one wants to cater to the class clientele, have patients seek the individual doctor, and if one intends to charge more procedure, this is good. A large volume practice is based on considering the burden of blindness and affordability. And they also have a clinical team which works together. The patient would come for the institution and not the individual surgeon. And there could also be the advantage of having lower charge per procedure, but the net income could be higher. So the net income is higher. So like Dr. Nitin mentioned, institutions can go ahead and invest in more expensive, sophisticated equipment. So more patients get the benefit of these high-end equipments as well. So in conclusion, I think we all know that in 2020, about 75% of our usual cataract surgery volume was performed compared to the pre-COVID era. And because of that, all of us saw an increased issue with blindness. We saw more patients who had more advanced eye disease and advanced cataracts. And I think ophthalmologists are the blessed few who have the unique skill to reduce blindness, and just by doing our daily routine work. So I think it is our responsibility and right to use that skill on a large number of patients and help more people see. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Haripriya. Both the talks are very good. So I have just one question to you, and I would ask the other speakers to start sharing their screen. The next one. How do you counter patient migration, which could occur in some of the dissatisfied patient in a high volume practice? And number two, the main question which I have is, sometimes we need to get some extra instrumentation like visual evoked potential and those kind of instruments which rarely get used. So how do you justify the cost recovery from some of these rarer instruments for a larger setup?
Yeah, so I think regarding, if you have cross migration of patients to another setup, I think that is not a major issue. At least the patient is seeking care, and if they get good care, it's perfectly fine. The bigger issue would be if they don't seek care, if they don't have a place, if they don't have access to eye care, that would probably be the bigger issue to me. If you have the right system, standardized protocols, good quality, there is a high chance that the patients would come back to you for your the second eye or for their other ocular needs as well. Regarding the other point of having high-end equipments or equipments which are where we use them far few, I think that is where again the scale plays a huge role. So because of the scale, we find that investing in these high-end equipment does make sense because you will have enough number of patients over a period of time, maybe not as soon as you buy them, but over a period of time, based on how you use it and how the protocols, you'll find that you're actually able to use them when you have a large volume practice.
Thank you very much.